Salutations everybody, it is Matty here today, sitting down for a little Xbox retrospective. I remember last time we did this, our eyes were full of hope and optimism as we entered the year 2022. Redfall's here, Starfield's here, finally that next generation of Xbox that we've been waiting for is gonna arrive. Of course, that wasn't the case. And the point of these State of Xbox videos is to really sit down and take an honest look at the year that we've had with the company, see what they've done right, see what they've done wrong, and then I think more importantly in this video is look ahead into 2023 and what we can expect out of Xbox, where certainly the pipeline is so clogged up that it's about to burst in one way or another. We're definitely getting games exclusively from first party next year. It's just going to be about whether or not they're good. The time is up for waiting. It's just about quality now, and that's a concern separate from the matter we're talking about today. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here, you're into Xbox news, information, and discussions, you are in the right place. Consider subscribing. Let's begin by looking back. I want to start this conversation really in the middle of the year because historically so, and this year it was the same issue again. The first half of the year for Xbox is pretty much non-existent out of one thing, and that was the Activision Blizzard acquisition. Talk about a significant start to the year. Xbox fans were feeling themselves something special, man. I remember reading the replies, people pounding their chest, but a lot of us who had seen what happened with Bethesda and all of the discourse surrounding that knew that we would be in for a really long ride. And certainly it's been everything we expected and more when it comes to Sony and Microsoft and the EU and the uncertainty surrounding the deal and Call of Duty exclusivity. But this was a megaton to start the year that, based off reports, came together pretty quickly and will definitely change Xbox forever when that acquisition is done. But outside of that, I'm talking about video game releases. The acquisitions are all future defining moments, and that's where we'll talk about a little bit more in 2023. But this got the heat off of Xbox's back, I think, for a good stretch of time until people become accustomed to the idea of, oh, Activision may actually be owned by Microsoft. That's insane. But this took the heat off their back from what is a typical problem of theirs, which is filling out the front half of the year with interesting exclusives. Now, you would get a cool indie gem like Tunic, and if there's one thing I can pat Xbox on the back this year and last year, it's that their indie program is finding some serious gems. Game Pass is full of them. And look, I will just say this. I was a big indie guy when the Switch came out. I fell off of it for about a year or two and focused a lot on AAA games and JRPGs. Game Pass has lit that love for indies again, and it's not letting go. Please do not sleep on some of the ones that are in Game Pass, with things like Signalis, Tunic, the list goes on, Death's Door. I mean, they just continue to add in more and more Proteus. It's insane. So they've killed the indie game, and that really helped them in the first half of the year. But let's be real, everyone's been waiting for the big AAA game. Xbox made a wise investment, and they put their money into Stalker 2, which looks fantastic. Unfortunately, things happened in the world. There's a war. The game gets indefinitely delayed. And obviously, what's happening there is much more important than video game releases. But that's one of the rare moments you can chalk it up to bad luck. And yeah, you can't really anticipate something like that's just going to happen and completely ruin your first quarter plans. But again, humanity in our hearts here. That's not the real big issue when you compare and contrast the two. Still, point being, Xbox is left again with a pretty vacant first half of the year, but what's carried them is what's always carried them, the anticipation, the excitement, man, getting into that summer showcase. Okay, we got Activision in the mix. Are they maybe gonna bend the rules and push for some day one Game Pass titles like Diablo 4 or Call of Duty? What's gonna happen? There was that unknown factor, and of course, the expected reveals of Starfield and Redfall. But just before that, there was a real kick between the legs that was delivered when we learned that the two 2022 games that we were most looking forward to as Xbox fans, Redfall and Starfield, were not going to come out this year. And it was guaranteed then and there that we were up for another vacant year. in the terms of first party, big deal, AAA exclusives, which is all Xbox fans have been looking for. And I don't think that comes from a point of lacking appreciation. I think Xbox fans, quite honestly, have been really more understanding than they should have been throughout this whole process. But patience is a virtue, and we've been again rewarded through Game Pass, which was the savior of the year. So of course this showcase comes, we learn a lot about what's coming within the next year. I thought it was a pretty solid show, but not anything I was losing my mind over. I did like the format of seeing what's coming within the year instead of announcing stuff that's really far off. I think that's something that will pay off really well for Xbox when they start to get games out the door, that you're gonna start to see some big deal things and go, oh my God, I'm playing Avowed now, and I know that within the next year I'm getting Fable. That's exciting. Like, my fantasy RPG head's about to explode. So the format's there. I think it's going to work well for them down the line. But as they announced more and more and more, you see 2023 is getting stacked for Xbox, whether it be day one Game Pass games such as Lies of P, which is this Bloodborne successor with Pinocchio that we never thought would be a thing, but it's incredible. It's there again, day one on Game Pass. There are so many diverse titles. Ravenlock, day one on Game Pass. It looks like there's something for everybody. But then you finally have the first party answers. You have the common ones like Minecraft Legends. We know that Forza Motorsport's coming out in the first half. We now know that Redfall and Starfield are coming out in 2023. And the thought is this: okay, we have these games that were supposed to come out in 2022, and now they're coming out in 2023. But clearly across Xbox's now 30 plus first party studios, there has to be other things ready to go by that point in time. Just because Bethesda had a couple of delays shouldn't mean that Ninja Theory perhaps should have their own delay, right? So there are other things in the pipeline now where Xbox is really going to let some games rip, and that's not even considering the Activision deal and how Call of Duty impacts their release cycle, where Xbox fans are going to start to eat pretty good through Game Pass, through day one drops. But this all goes back to that year window of announcing things and creating an imaginative, exciting ecosystem. But the reality is, here in 2022, not much happened. But the reality is, the year of 2022, not much happened. And the stronger truth here is 2022 was the year of Game Pass. If there's ever going to be a case example that you can point out and say, why does Game Pass matter for Xbox? It's right here in this year where nothing of significance, if you will, released day one from the first party library. But I used my Xbox a ton this year because they continued to feed Game Pass with cool indies, surprise ones like Shredder's Revenge was easily, to me, the best surprise this year. And there are some cool console exclusive titles from Obsidian where you get the diversity of Grounded and Pentiment, two fantastic games, really solidifying Obsidian as one of Xbox's, if not the best Xbox first-party studio, although I will hold back until Avowed drops, although I personally believe that to be the case. But then you throw on top of that something new like High on Life, which looks pretty sweet. And now you've got a pretty unique fall holiday window, but what's underpinning all of it is Game Pass. Game Pass has made these games more accessible, made them more interesting to try, where I got people trying Signalis, which I think is one of the best games of the year. It's a survival horror PS1 style game, but has all the modern bells and whistles with atmosphere and true tone and a kind of story that's delivered to you in the same way that I would say Silent Hill 2 was, where it's very ambiguous and up to interpretation. This is a game that just dropped day one on Game Pass. And to me, that's as exciting in some respects as, for example, the first party drops. That discovery of saying, I didn't know this game existed. I didn't know Signalis was coming out. I just heard Scuttlebutt online. I went into Game Pass and I saw, oh, hey, there it is. And I tried it and loved it. I loved it. One of my favorite games of the year, just because of Game Pass. I was able to try it out. And that goes to their first party library where they diversify things. I don't think many people would have tried out Pentiment. It's a $20 game. I think it's a fair price tag for the game they're trying to sell, especially given it's super niche, but it's Pentiment. Let's be honest, Pentiment isn't for everybody, despite the amazing reviews it got. And as much as I love it, Pentiment is not for everybody. But because it's in Game Pass, you can try it and go, well, you know what? I actually kind of like this because I, quote, didn't have to pay for it, end quote. It's a part of my subscription service. This year was saved by Game Pass. Was it a great year for Xbox? No, but it shows how Game Pass can manage the most catastrophic situation through day and date drops. And that is commendable that the infrastructure was there and you saw it all working together between day and date drops and cloud gaming. Cloud gaming improved tremendously in this year. And I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, but I'll just say with my Logitech G Cloud, I've been putting more hours into cloud gaming than I ever expected. It's become the perfect companion device for my Xbox. I love that thing. And I'm using cloud gaming a lot now, which I never expected to be doing. So the Xbox ecosystem is there. And once those delays happened, I think the goal of 2022 had to become structure everything properly so that when it's time to rock and roll in 2023, you have everything ready. Make sure Game Pass's framework and HUD is exactly what you want it to be, because you're going to get a surge of users on Xbox and on Game Pass. Make sure your cloud streaming is good to go, because you're going to get a surge of users. Make sure that any hardware you want to drop, like a new Elite controller, is good to go. Make sure the entire Xbox framework is ready and rocking. And they still have a lot of room to improve. Things like the achievement system. I still think the DVR leaves a lot to be desired. There's much more underneath the hood that Xbox needs to continue to work on. The PC app still isn't that great, but overall, they did make strides in the framework, which I think is the main thing they need to focus on when you're expecting a surge of users, when you're finally going to deliver on first-party promises. So that is what's happening in 2022. Overall, a lackluster year in first-party support, but I think a pretty strong year in Game Pass, a pretty strong year in lifting up your framework and making it better, and of course, a strong year in acquisitions. You got the big dog, Activision Blizzard, and with that, a heap of dead IPs that you can maybe revive and get something really special going here, as Xbox could revive what is a bunch of games that we all think about and want more of. Prototype, Singularity, Guitar Hero, Skylanders, the list goes on. Of course, Phil Spencer talks a lot about Hexen. So there's so many that could be revived. Now we look ahead, which we've kind of done throughout this video just organically, but to focus on it a bit more, now we kick the dirt off our feet. What is the expectation for 2023 with Xbox? I think bar none, Xbox fanboys, take the armor off, take the sword and shield, put it down, okay? Expect excellence. If you do not receive excellence, you should be mad because Xbox has made you wait. Branching off of that for just a brief moment though, you got to remember that there is a fair talking point that's circled around for the last couple of years, which is that the goalposts do get moved on Xbox pretty often. I don't like to say that just because I feel like it can often dismiss criticism, but there are times where they make strides, like I've talked about here with Game Pass and cloud infrastructure, and people go, well, they didn't deliver first-party games. It's like, well, yeah, that sucks, and I agree, but that doesn't take away from what they've done here. So when I say expect excellence, I mean in the terms of first-party quality. A lot of these games have been cooking for a while, and game development is tough, complicated, arduous, long-term, as many of us are very familiar with it. So yeah, it doesn't mean it's guaranteed excellence, but when I say expect excellence, Xbox has made you wait, and PlayStation has nailed the cadence of getting these big blockbuster games out, and they're a moment. Xbox doesn't really have that, and maybe they never truly will capture that because they like to let their teams experiment. I would rather get the occasional Pentiment and Grounded amidst all of the excellent first-party games I hope to get, and if they're not as big of a pop, that's okay to me because we're getting more diversity in our libraries. Then here's the next movie-style game, and I'm not saying that to dismiss the great games that PlayStation makes that I love, by the way. It's just that they have a format. I'm hoping Xbox doesn't develop a format as they get into these quarterly releases, but make no mistake that you should expect excellence because this company has kept you waiting for a while, okay? And I'm sure there'll be great games, but Xbox this year needs to establish the precedence that they can publish truly significant first-party games with actual success, okay? Halo Infinite, you could argue, was a success because it did start off pretty strong and the support was really lackluster. Who does that fall on? 343, Xbox. Did they not wait long enough? Did Xbox pull the trigger too soon? Was 343 not genuine in their feedback with where they were in the development cycle? Answers, unfortunately, that we'll never truly have. But when you look at things like Forza Horizon, which were known quantities, it's really in 2023 that's become the final prove it year, where you can hit the launch button, deliver a high quality AAA first party exclusive, and let the world see that Xbox can produce those types of games. And more importantly, as I've said ad nauseum when it comes to Starfield and Redfall, these are some of the most important games Xbox will ever have to launch in their history, because all eyes will be on what's the quality of these games and how does Xbox impact them in a positive way that makes it where other publishers and other developers across the world will want to work with them. Obviously, other examples have been out there and should speak for themselves, but these are going to be the ones that draw the most eyes. So they need to nail it, and you should expect excellence. On top of that, more day one Game Pass games. And of course, with the Activision deal probably going through by that point in time, you got to take a real look at what this summer showcase is going to look like. And I think they need to figure out a quarterly show. When you're managing Xbox Game Studios, Bethesda as a whole, and Activision Blizzard, that's a lot of companies and a lot of moving parts, and Xbox could easily have their own State of Play Nintendo Direct. And I'm going to urge again that they really look into that, because what's happening is they're making these mini marketing deals like, ID at Xbox is going to work with the awful Twitch gaming platform, and it is just horrible what they do to some of these indies because they get buried by ego and personality. Like, you need a quarterly show that lifts everyone up to the same playing field, because internally they certainly would have enough to show off frequently. And then there's going to be the third party stuff and the day one Game Pass stuff. It's just too much all over the place. We got to bring it all together. So that's the state of Xbox heading into 2023. There's a lot to be excited about. You should expect excellence, but there is room to improve even more here. And I do think that new show style is mandatory. We'll see how they respond though and what their plans are. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm looking forward to seeing your thoughts on the state of Xbox, so fire away. And with that, take great care of yourselves. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. And a big thank you to all the patrons, all the members who continue to support the hell out of the content here. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.